The clatter of dishes and hum of conversation filled the air at Bellini's, one of the most expensive restaurants in town. In the middle of it all, Lily Chen moved between tables with practiced grace, balancing 3 plates on one arm while tucking a stray lock of dark hair behind her ear with her free hand. "Here's your herb-crusted salmon, sir," she said, carefully placing the dish in front of a middle-aged businessman. "And the butternut squash ravioli for you, ma'am. Can I get you anything else at the moment?" The couple shook their heads, already reaching for their forks, and Lily slipped away with a polite smile that faded the moment her back was turned. Her feet ached after 8 hours of standing, and she still had 2 more before her shift ended. But the bills wouldn't pay themselves, and community college tuition was due next week. As she headed toward the kitchen, Lily began to hum softly to herself, a habit she'd developed to help pass the time during long shifts. The melody flowed naturally from her lips, complex and soothing, the notes of Debussy's Clair de Lune rising and falling as she pushed through the swinging doors. "Order up for table 12, called the head chef, sliding 2 more plates onto the counter. Lily nodded, still humming as she arranged the dishes on her tray. "That's lovely," said Rosa, one of the other waitresses, as she grabbed a water pitcher. "Where'd you learn that song?" Lily stopped abruptly, her cheeks warming. "Oh, it's nothing. Just something I heard somewhere." Rosa looked like she might ask more questions, but the chime of the bell at the counter pulled her attention away. Lily breathed a sigh of relief. The last thing she wanted was to talk about her past with music. Back on the floor, Lily delivered the plates to a corner table where an older gentleman sat alone, his silver hair perfectly combed, his suit clearly custom-made. She recognized him immediately, Richard Preston, one of Bellini's most frequent customers and reportedly one of the wealthiest men in the city. He owned half the real estate downtown if the rumors were true. "Your steak medium rare," she announced, setting the plate down, "and the truffle risotto. Can I get you anything else, Mr. Preston?" He looked up, his sharp eyes studying her face. "You were humming something when you approached. Debussy, wasn't it?" Lily froze, her professional smile faltering for just a second. Yes. Just a random tune, hardly random. That was Clair de Lune, and not the simplified version. You had all the arpeggios correct." He took a sip of his wine, still watching her. Interesting choice for a waitress. The way he said waitress made Lily's spine stiffen, as if the job title itself was something shameful. "I enjoy classical music," she said simply, determined not to reveal more. Mr. Preston murmured, cutting into his steak. "Do you play or merely listen?" Lily hesitated. 6 years ago, she would have proudly answered this question. Now, the words stuck in her throat. "I should check on my other tables, sir. Enjoy your meal." As she walked away, she could feel his eyes following her. Her hands trembled slightly as she refilled water glasses at another table. No one here knew about her past with music, and she preferred to keep it that way. Later that night, Lily unlocked the door to her small apartment, dropping her purse and keys on the counter with a sigh. Her roommate Tasha was sprawled on the couch, textbooks open around her. "You look dead on your feet," Tasha commented, looking up from her nursing school homework. "Rough shift." "The usual," Lily replied, kicking off her shoes and wiggling her toes in relief. "Rich people expecting perfect service while barely acknowledging you're human." "Any good tips at least?" Lily pulled a wad of cash from her pocket and counted quickly. "Decent enough. This plus Thursday's shift should cover my tuition payment." She moved to the small kitchen area and opened the refrigerator, though she knew there wasn't much inside. They were both stretched thin financially, despite working nearly full-time while attending school. Tasha closed her textbook and stretched. "You know what I don't get? Why you're killing yourself waiting tables when you could probably make twice as much giving piano lessons." The comment hit Lily like a bucket of cold water. She shut the refrigerator door harder than necessary. "We've talked about this, Tosh. That part of my life is over." "It doesn't have to be," Tasha persisted. "Just because of one bad performance." "It wasn't just bad," Lily cut in, her voice tight. "It was catastrophic. I froze in front of hundreds of people, including scouts from 3 major conservatories." She leaned against the counter, the memory still visceral after all this time. 12 years of training gone in 5 minutes of total panic. "You were 17, Tasha said gently. "Everyone has disasters at 17. "Not like that." Lily shook her head. "Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm fine with my life now. Both women knew it wasn't entirely true, but Tasha had the kindness not to argue further. Instead, she changed the subject. "There's some leftover pasta in the blue container if you're hungry." Lily nodded gratefully for the distraction and the food. After heating up the pasta, she sat at their small kitchen table, scrolling through her phone as she ate. A notification reminded her of the business administration exam next week. She needed to pass to stay on track for her degree. A practical degree that would lead to a stable office job someday. Nothing glamorous but secure, predictable, safe, unlike music, which had once been her entire world. As a child, Lily had shown extraordinary talent at the piano. Her parents, her father a mechanic and her mother a school secretary, had sacrificed to pay for lessons, proud of their prodigy daughter. By 13, she was performing in regional competitions. By 16, she was being mentioned as one of the most promising young pianists in the state, headed for a career in music. Then came the state finals, her senior year of high school. The importance of the moment, the weight of everyone's expectations, had crushed her. She'd walked on stage confident, sat at the piano, placed her fingers on the keys, and nothing happened. Her mind went completely blank, fingers frozen. After excruciating minutes of silence and a few fumbled attempts, she'd fled the stage in tears. She never touched a piano again. Now, at 23, Lily was determined to build a new life. One where she was just ordinary. No great talents, no great failures. Just a regular person working toward a regular future. The next morning, she dragged herself to her 8 a.m. accounting class, then to the library to study before her evening shift at Bellini's. The restaurant was particularly busy for a Tuesday, with several large parties celebrating various occasions. Lily was carrying a tray of dirty dishes back to the kitchen when she noticed Mr. Preston seated at his usual corner table, this time with a small group of well-dressed companions. She tried to take a different route to avoid him, but the restaurant manager intercepted her. "Lily, Mr. Preston specifically requested you for his table," he said, his tone making it clear this wasn't a request she could refuse. Preston was too valuable a customer. Hiding her unease behind a professional smile, Lily approached the table. "Good evening, Mr. Preston. How are you tonight?" "Quite well," he replied, gesturing to his companions. "We're celebrating the successful closure of our latest development project." Lily nodded politely, taking drink orders from the 4 other people at the table, 3 men and 1 woman, all wearing clothes that probably cost more than her monthly rent. As she turned to leave, Mr. Preston said, "Oh, and Lily? Perhaps you could recommend something from the menu that features classical elements." The odd request, coupled with his knowing look, made her stomach tighten. He was toying with her, but she couldn't understand why. "The chef's tasting menu is inspired by traditional French techniques," she offered neutrally. "It's a 6-course experience that many of our guests enjoy." "Perfect," Preston said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "And while we enjoy that experience, perhaps you could tell us about your experience with music." The woman beside him looked confused. "Richard, what are you talking about?" "Our waitress here has a hidden talent," he explained, still watching Lily. "I heard her humming Debussy yesterday with perfect pitch and phrasing." Lily felt heat rising to her face as all eyes at the table turned to her. "I should get those drink orders in," she said, retreating quickly. In the relative safety of the bar area, she tried to steady her breathing. Why was he so interested in her musical background? What game was he playing? Throughout the evening, Preston made several more comments about music whenever she approached the table, causing his companions to look at her with increasing curiosity. By the time they requested their check, Lily was exhausted from the tension. As she handed Preston his credit card slip, he said, "I'm hosting a dinner party at my home this Saturday evening. My regular pianist just canceled due to a family emergency." Lily immediately sensed where this was heading and felt a cold dread spreading through her chest. "That's unfortunate, sir." "Indeed." He signed the receipt with a flourish. "The party is quite important. Several potential investors will be there. I need someone to provide background music. I'm sure there are many professional musicians in town who would be happy to help," she suggested, trying to keep her voice steady. Preston's smile turned sharp. "But I found someone already, you." "I'm sorry, but I don't play anymore," Lily said firmly, "and I'm scheduled to work Saturday night." "I've already spoken to your manager. He's agreed to give you the night off." Preston stood, straightening his expensive jacket. "I pay very well." $500 for 3 hours of simple background music. The amount made Lily's breath catch. Nearly a week's worth of tips in one night. Money she desperately needed. But the thought of sitting at a piano again in front of people. I really can't, she insisted, panic beginning to rise. Preston leaned closer, his voice dropping. Let me be clear. I've been coming to this restaurant for 15 years. Your manager values my business greatly. If I were to express disappointment in a particular server's unwillingness to help me in a simple matter. He let the implication hang in the air. Lily understood the threat immediately. Her job was on the line. The job she needed to pay for school, for rent, for everything. Fine, she whispered, feeling trapped. What time on Saturday? Preston smiled triumphantly. 7 o'clock. My driver will pick you up. He handed her a business card with an address written on the back. Casual but elegant attire. Nothing too formal. As he walked away, Lily heard him say to one of his companions, Wait until you hear our entertainment Saturday. A waitress who thinks she can play piano. Should be amusing, if nothing else. The word stung, making his intentions clear. He wasn't offering her an opportunity. He was setting her up to fail, to be entertainment in more ways than one. To be the joke of the evening. Lily clutched the business card, torn between rage and fear. After 6 years of protecting herself from exactly this kind of situation, she was being forced back to the piano as a party trick, by a man who clearly expected her to humiliate herself for his amusement. But she needed this job. And maybe, just maybe, a small part of her wondered if it was time to face her fears. Lily stood in front of her closet, staring at the meager selection of clothes hanging inside. Nothing seemed right for a fancy dinner party at a mansion. She pulled out a black skirt she usually wore for job interviews and held it against herself, studying her reflection in the mirror propped against the wall. Too boring, she muttered, tossing it onto her bed. Saturday evening had arrived too quickly. For 3 days she'd been fighting waves of anxiety that left her stomach in knots and her hands slightly shaky, not ideal for someone about to play piano after 6 years of complete avoidance. Tasha poked her head into the bedroom. How's it going in here? Terrible, Lily admitted. I have nothing to wear to a rich person's house. Tasha stepped inside and surveyed the growing pile of rejected outfits on the bed. You know, I still have that blue dress my cousin lent me for that wedding last year. Never returned it. It might fit you. 15 minutes later, Lily was wearing a simple but elegant navy blue dress that fell just below her knees. It wasn't designer fashion, but it looked polished enough not to scream, Waitress playing dress up. You look great, Tasha said, adjusting the neckline. Very sophisticated. Lily barely heard her. She was staring at her hands, flexing her fingers unconsciously. I haven't practiced, she whispered. I mean, I tried yesterday, but I couldn't even get through a basic scale without feeling sick. Did you try the breathing exercises your old teacher taught you? Lily nodded. They're not helping like they used to. Then fake it, Tasha said firmly. Even if you mess up every single note, hold your head high and act like that's exactly what you meant to play. A car horn sounded outside their apartment building. Mr. Preston's driver, right on time. Lily grabbed a small purse and her phone. What if I completely freeze again? She asked, her voice small. Tasha squeezed her shoulders. Then you walk away with your dignity intact, come home, and we order pizza and trash talk rich people all night. But I don't think you'll freeze. You're not 17 anymore. The drive to Preston's estate took nearly 30 minutes, heading into the hills where the wealthiest residents of the city lived. When the car finally turned through a set of imposing gates and up a curved driveway, Lily's eyes widened at the sight of the house. A sprawling modern mansion of glass and stone that seemed to emerge organically from the hillside. Several luxury cars were already parked in the circular drive, and through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Lily could see people in evening wear mingling inside. Mr. Preston said to bring you through the side entrance, the driver informed her, stopping near a less conspicuous door rather than the grand front entrance. The implication was clear. She wasn't a guest, just the help. A woman in a black uniform, clearly part of the catering staff, met her at the door. You're the pianist? Follow me, please. Lily was led through a service corridor and into the main part of the house. The interior was even more impressive than the exterior. Open concept spaces with modern art on the walls, designer furniture, and a wall of windows that showcased a stunning view of the city lights below. In the center of the main room stood a gleaming black grand piano. The sight of it made Lily's heart skip a beat. It was a Steinway, probably worth more than her entire life savings multiplied by 10. The lid was already raised and sheet music had been placed on the stand. Standard cocktail party selections. Nothing too demanding. "There you are," came Preston's voice from behind her. Lily turned to find him approaching with a glass of champagne in hand. He was wearing an expensive suit that made him look even more imposing than he did at the restaurant. "Thank you for the ride," she said stiffly. "Of course." His eyes scanned her dress with mild surprise, as if he'd expected her to show up in her waitress uniform. "Can I offer you something to drink before you begin?" "Wine? Champagne?" "Water would be fine," Lily replied. Her mouth felt dry, but alcohol was the last thing she needed with her nerves already frayed. Preston signaled to a passing server. "Water for our entertainment." He turned back to Lily with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "My guests will be arriving in full force within the next half hour. I thought you could play some background music during the cocktail hour, then a bit more during dinner. Nothing flashy, just pleasant ambiance." The way he said nothing flashy carried a clear message. He didn't expect her to be capable of anything impressive. "I understand," Lily said, accepting a glass of water from the server. "Wonderful." Preston checked his watch. "Why don't you start in about 10 minutes? Just something soft to begin with." As he walked away to greet new arrivals, Lily approached the piano cautiously, as if it might bite her. She set her water on a small table nearby and gently touched the keys without pressing them, feeling the cool, smooth ivory beneath her fingertips. 6 years. 6 years since she'd last performed for anyone. She'd tried a few times to play just for herself after the disaster at the state finals, but each attempt had brought back the crushing anxiety, the memory of hundreds of eyes watching her fail. She sat on the bench and took a deep breath, trying to center herself. The bench was perfectly adjusted. Someone had prepared the piano properly. The sheet music was simple enough: Debussy, Satie, some Chopin nocturnes. All pieces she'd once known by heart. More guests were arriving now. Well-dressed men and women with expensive jewelry and confident postures. They barely glanced at Lily as they entered, accepting drinks from servers and forming small conversation groups. No one was paying attention to her. Not yet. She placed her fingers on the keys and played a simple C major chord, so softly it was almost inaudible over the conversation. The piano was beautifully tuned, its tone rich and warm. Despite everything, a tiny spark of pleasure flickered inside her at the sound. Just background music, she told herself. No one's really listening. It's just a job. $500 for 3 hours of work. She began to play a simple Satie piece, Gymnopédie No. 1, slow, gentle, unobtrusive. Her fingers felt stiff at first, uncertain, but as she moved through the familiar patterns, some part of her body remembered what to do even if her mind was clouded with anxiety. By the time she finished the piece, more guests had arrived. The volume of conversation had increased, and no one seemed to have noticed her playing at all. This was both a relief and, surprisingly, a small disappointment. She moved on to Debussy's Reverie, slightly more complex but still well within the boundaries of tasteful background music. As she played, she kept her eyes fixed on the keys, too nervous to look up at the crowd. After 20 minutes, she'd relaxed enough to move beyond the sheet music provided, drawing on pieces she'd once known so well they lived in her muscle memory. Her hands were moving more confidently now, finding the notes without conscious thought. "That's lovely," said a voice beside her. Lily startled, her fingers stumbling on the keys before she recovered. A woman in her 60s with silver hair and an elegant pantsuit stood near the piano, watching her with genuine interest. "Thank you," Lily murmured, continuing to play softly. "Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major," the woman observed. "One of my favorites. You play it beautifully." Before Lily could respond, Preston appeared at the woman's side. I see you've noticed our entertainment for the evening, Catherine." The way he said entertainment made Lily cringe inwardly. "Where did you find her, Richard?" The woman Catherine asked. "She's quite talented." Preston smiled, that same smug smile he'd worn at the restaurant. "Would you believe she's a waitress at Bellini's? I overheard her humming classical music and thought it might be amusing to have her play tonight." "A bit of a gamble, really." Catherine raised an eyebrow. Well, the gamble paid off. She's very good. We'll see, Preston replied. The evening is young. Come, let me introduce you to Howard. He's just closed that deal we discussed. As they walked away, Lily caught the rest of Preston's words. Probably just knows a few showpieces. These amateur performers usually don't have much depth to their repertoire. Her cheeks burned with humiliation and anger. She'd been right. He had brought her here expecting her to fail, to provide entertainment through her inadequacy. The fact that she was playing competently seemed to disappoint him. For the next hour, Lily continued to play, moving between the sheet music provided and pieces she remembered. A few guests paused to listen appreciatively, but most treated her as part of the background, exactly as Preston had intended. Servers began to direct guests toward an adjoining dining room where tables had been set for dinner. Lily wasn't sure if she should follow or stay at the piano, but Preston soon appeared at her side. "You can take a short break," he said, sounding slightly annoyed. "There's a small room down that hallway where the caterers have set up staff meals. Help yourself. Then I'd like you to play during dinner, something a bit more challenging, perhaps." His tone made it clear what he expected, that challenging would expose her limitations. "Of course," Lily replied, keeping her expression neutral despite the anger simmering inside her. In the staff area, she found a small buffet of food that, while clearly leftovers from the main event, was still far better than what she usually ate. She filled a plate and sat alone at a small table, checking her phone. 2 texts from Tasha. "How's it going? Rich people being awful yet? Remember, you're better than all of them. You just don't have their money." Lily smiled weakly and typed a quick reply. "Playing went okay so far. Preston definitely brought me here to fail, but I'm hanging in there. Next round will be harder." She ate quickly, knowing she didn't have much time. As she was finishing, one of the catering staff approached her. "You're the piano player, right? The boss wants you back out there. They're finishing the first course." Lily nodded, suddenly aware that all the serving staff probably knew her situation, the waitress pretending to be a musician for the night. Another humiliation courtesy of Richard Preston. As she made her way back to the main room, she paused in the hallway, taking deep breaths. The anger she felt toward Preston was actually helping to push back against her anxiety. For 6 years, she'd been running from music because of fear. Tonight, someone was using that fear as a weapon against her. Maybe it was time to stop running. She returned to the piano where Preston was waiting. The guests were now seated at several round tables in the dining room, visible through wide doorways. The piano was positioned so that the music would carry into that space. "Our first course is being served," Preston announced to her. "Something with a bit more sophistication now, don't you think? Something to impress my guests?" His eyes held a challenge. Lily met his gaze steadily. "What would you suggest, Mr. Preston?" "Oh, I don't know. Liszt, perhaps. Or one of the more difficult Chopin pieces. Something that would showcase real talent." The emphasis on real was unmistakable. "I'll see what I can do," Lily said quietly. As Preston walked away to rejoin his guests, Lily sat at the piano and flexed her fingers. She knew exactly what he was doing, setting her up to attempt something beyond her capabilities, ensuring she would fail and provide the entertainment he'd promised his friends. The spectacle of a waitress in over her head. She closed her eyes, considering her options. She could play it safe with something simple, avoiding the trap but confirming his low expectations. Or she could attempt something challenging and risk public humiliation. Again. Her fingers hovered over the keys as she made her decision. Lily took a deep breath and began to play. Not Liszt, not Chopin. Instead, her fingers found the opening notes of Bach's Prelude in C major, from the Well-Tempered Clavier. It was a piece she had once played as a warm-up, something familiar that would help steady her nerves. The simple flowing arpeggios filled the room, gentle but precise. As she played, she kept her eyes on her hands, refusing to look at Preston or his guests. The piece wasn't flashy or technically difficult, but it had a mathematical perfection that required clean execution. Each note rang clear in the perfect acoustics of the high-ceilinged room. When she finished, there was a smattering of polite applause from the dining area. Lily allowed herself a quick glance up and saw Preston watching her with narrowed eyes. He'd expected her to take his bait, to attempt something beyond her current abilities and stumble. Instead, she'd chosen something well within her reach and played it flawlessly. Encouraged by this small victory, Lily moved into another Bach piece, slightly more complex. Her fingers were warming up now, muscle memory returning as if awakening from a long sleep. The years of training hadn't disappeared entirely. They had just been buried beneath layers of fear and avoidance. As the servers brought out the main course, Lily gradually increased the difficulty of her selections. A Mozart sonata, a simpler Chopin nocturne, each piece rebuilding her confidence incrementally. It was like learning to walk again after a long illness, tentative at first, then with increasing steadiness. During a brief pause between pieces, she heard snippets of conversation from the dining room. Actually quite good. "Where did you find her, Richard?" "I said she's usually a waitress at Bellini's. Wasted talent, if you ask me. Why is she serving food instead of—" Lily felt her cheeks flush. She was being discussed like in curiosity, a talking point for the dinner conversation. It stung, but not as much as she'd expected. Their opinions, even Preston's, seemed less important now that she was reconnecting with the music. She began Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, its familiar, haunting melody flowing from her fingers. This had once been one of her signature pieces, one that had won her praise at competitions in her teens. As she played, her focus narrowed until there was nothing but the keys beneath her fingers and the music filling her mind. When she finished the first movement and paused, she realized the dining room had grown quieter. Some of the guests had stopped their conversations to listen. Among them, the silver-haired woman, Catherine, was watching her with undisguised interest. Preston appeared at her side again, his smile tight. "Lovely background music," he said, emphasizing the word background in a way that made his meaning clear. "Stay in your place." "Thank you," Lily replied. "I hope it's not too distracting for your guests." "Not at all, though perhaps something a bit more contemporary for dessert." "Not everyone appreciates the classics." Translation: "Stop showing off." Lily nodded, but as Preston walked away, she felt a flicker of defiance growing stronger inside her. She hadn't come here planning to prove anything. She'd come because she needed the money and had been coerced. But something was shifting inside her with every note she played. For dessert, she did as requested, playing some lighter, more contemporary pieces, film scores, tasteful arrangements of pop songs. The kind of music Preston clearly thought more appropriate for someone of her standing. She played them well, but without the connection she'd felt to the classical pieces. As the meal concluded and guests moved back to the main area for coffee and drinks, Lily expected to be dismissed. The agreed-upon performance time was nearly up. But Catherine, the silver-haired woman, approached the piano. "That was Einaudi you just played, wasn't it?" she asked. Lily nodded. "Yes, I Giorni. Do you know it?" "My granddaughter plays it, though not nearly as well as you." Catherine studied her with curious eyes. "Richard mentioned you work at Bellini's. How long have you been playing piano?" "Since I was 5, Lily admitted. "But I haven't played much in recent years." "That's hard to believe given what I've heard tonight." Catherine sat on a small chair near the piano. "I taught music for 40 years at the conservatory before I retired. You have remarkable technique, especially for someone who hasn't been practicing." Before Lily could respond, Preston approached, 2 men in expensive suits following close behind. "Catherine, I'd like to introduce you to—" He stopped, seeming annoyed to find her engaged with the help. "I see you're still chatting with our entertainment." Catherine gave him a cool smile. "Yes, Richard. We were discussing her training. Did you know your waitress studied at the Palmer Academy of Music? Only the most gifted young musicians are accepted there." Lily stared at Catherine in shock. She had never mentioned Palmer, yet somehow this woman had guessed correctly. Preston's expression flickered with surprise before he regained his composure. "How interesting. Catherine is quite the music enthusiast," he explained to his companions, "always discovering hidden talents." "Not hidden," Catherine corrected, "merely unrecognized by some." She turned back to Lily. "Would you play something else for us, dear? Something you love, not what you think we want to hear." The request was gentle but carried an unmistakable challenge, not just to Lily, but to Preston as well. The 2 older adults seemed locked in some sort of silent power struggle, with Lily caught in the middle. "I should probably stick to the background music Mr. Preston hired me for," Lily said cautiously. "Nonsense," Catherine replied. "We've finished dinner. People are relaxing with drinks, and I'd like to hear what you're truly capable of." She looked at Preston. "You wouldn't object to giving your guests a proper musical experience, would you, Richard?" Put on the spot, Preston forced a smile. "Of course not. By all means, let's hear what else our waitress can play." The deliberate emphasis on waitress hadn't escaped Catherine, whose eyes narrowed slightly before she turned back to Lily with an encouraging nod. Lily's heart began to race. This was exactly the scenario she'd been dreading, being asked to perform, truly perform, not just provide pleasant background noise. The familiar anxiety began to creep back in, a tightness in her chest, a slight tremor in her hands. But there was something different now. Catherine's recognition of her training, the small victories throughout the evening, even Preston's transparent attempts to diminish her, all of it had awakened something that had been dormant for 6 years. Not just muscle memory, but a deeper connection to why she had once loved music so passionately. She closed her eyes for a moment, pushing away thoughts of the guests who were now gathering around the piano, of Preston's smug expectation of her failure, even of Catherine's well-meaning encouragement. Instead, she thought of her younger self, the girl who had played for the pure joy of it, before competitions and expectations had turned music into a source of anxiety. When she opened her eyes again, Lily knew what she wanted to play. Not for Preston, not for Catherine, not even to prove anything to herself, simply because, for the first time in years, she wanted to make music again. Her fingers found the opening notes of Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor. It was a piece she had once loved deeply, one that told a story through its music, beginning gently, almost tentatively, then building in complexity and emotion until it reached a passionate, technically demanding conclusion. It was also one of the pieces she had been scheduled to play at the state finals, before panic had overtaken her. The first gentle notes floated into the air, and Lily felt a momentary flash of that old terror, but she pushed through it, focusing on the music itself rather than the people listening. The early phrases were like a question being asked, tentative and searching. As she continued, more of the guests drifted closer to the piano. Lily barely noticed. She was falling into the music now, her body remembering what her mind had tried to forget. The middle section grew more complex, her left and right hands working independently, creating layers of sound. Then came the building intensity, the music surging forward like a wave. Her fingers moved faster, dancing across the keys with growing confidence. There was no sheet music before her. She was playing entirely from memory, from the heart. In the most technically challenging passages, she felt that familiar fear threatening to return. The fear of missing a note, of losing her place, of failing publicly. But this time, instead of allowing it to paralyze her, she acknowledged it and kept playing. So what if she missed a note? So what if it wasn't perfect? The music itself was what mattered, not some impossible standard of flawlessness. As she approached the final thundering chords, Lily was no longer in Preston's mansion. She was no longer a waitress being humiliated for entertainment. She was simply a musician, reunited with her art after a long separation. The final notes resonated through the room, lingering in the air like a question waiting to be answered. For a moment, there was complete silence. Lily sat motionless, breathing hard, her hands still hovering over the keys. Slowly, awareness of her surroundings returned. She became conscious of the crowd that had gathered around the piano, of Preston standing with an unreadable expression, of Catherine watching her with shining eyes. Then the applause began, not polite, background music applause, but genuine, enthusiastic appreciation. Several guests were actually standing. Catherine was beaming at her like a proud teacher. And Preston looked like someone who had just watched his practical joke backfire spectacularly. Lily stood, slightly unsteady on her feet, and gave a small, awkward bow. The applause continued. A tall man in a dark suit stepped forward. "That was extraordinary," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Anthony Winters, Dean of Performance at the City Conservatory. I'd very much like to talk with you about your music background." Lily shook his hand in a daze. "I thank you, but I don't really play anymore. Tonight was just a favor for Richard," Catherine cut in smoothly, but clearly a fortuitous one. "Anthony, did I mention that Lily studied at Palmer?" As the two older adults began discussing her as if she weren't there, Lily caught sight of Preston, standing slightly apart from the group. His face had settled into a mask of polite appreciation, but his eyes told a different story. He'd brought her here to be a joke, and instead she'd stolen the spotlight at his own party. He raised his glass slightly in her direction, a reluctant acknowledgement of defeat before turning away to speak with other guests. Lily felt a complex mix of emotions washing over her: pride in what she'd just accomplished, lingering anxiety from the performance, anger at Preston's manipulations, and beneath it all a sense of rediscovery. The music that had once been her greatest joy, then her deepest shame, had tonight become something new. A path forward, perhaps. Catherine touched her arm gently. "Are you all right, dear? You look a bit overwhelmed." Lily took a deep breath and smiled, a genuine smile that felt strange on her face after the tension of the evening. "I think I am," she said. "All right, I mean, maybe better than I've been in a long time." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Lily found herself surrounded by Preston's guests, answering questions about her musical background while trying to downplay the fact that she normally served people like them dinner at Bellini's. Catherine stayed close by, occasionally steering the conversation when it veered too close to uncomfortable territory. "You mentioned you studied at Palmer Academy," said a woman in a red cocktail dress. "Did you graduate?" "I left during my senior year," Lily admitted, trying to keep her voice steady. "Personal reasons," Catherine smoothly intervened. "The important thing is that talent like this doesn't disappear. It simply waits for the right moment." Anthony Winters, the conservatory dean, handed Lily his business card. "I meant what I said earlier. I'd like to talk with you about opportunities at the conservatory. We have several programs that might interest you, including some with scholarship options." Lily took the card automatically, too overwhelmed to process what he was suggesting. "Thank you, but I have a job and I'm already taking business classes at the community college." "Keep the card," he insisted. Options are always good to have. By the time the party began to thin out, Lily was exhausted, emotionally drained from the performance and the unexpected attention that followed. She had played a few more pieces at the guest's request, each one easier than the last as her confidence grew. The fear hadn't disappeared entirely, but it had retreated to a manageable distance. Preston had largely avoided her after the Chopin piece, but as the last guests were leaving, he approached her at the piano. "Well," he said, his tone carefully neutral, "that was quite unexpected." Lily looked up at him, trying to read his expression. Was he angry that she had outshone his expectations? Embarrassed that his attempt to humiliate her had backfired? "I hope it was appropriate for your party," she said cautiously. "More than appropriate. You were the highlight of the evening, apparently." He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. "Your payment, as agreed. $500. As Lily took the envelope, Preston added, "plus a bonus. Another $500. You earned it." The gesture surprised her. "Thank you. May I ask why?" Preston said suddenly. "Why you're waiting tables when you can play like that?" The question caught Lily off guard. It wasn't asked with his usual condescension, but with what seemed like genuine curiosity. "It's complicated," she replied after a moment. "I had a bad experience. Stage fright. I froze during an important performance and I just couldn't face it again. Until tonight, I guess." Preston nodded slowly. "Fear can be a powerful thing," he said. And for a brief moment, Lily thought she detected something almost like understanding in his eyes. Then his usual mask of polite detachment returned. "My driver will take you home whenever you're ready." He walked away, leaving Lily to gather her things. As she was putting on her light jacket, Catherine approached. "I wanted to say goodbye properly," the older woman said, "and to thank you for a wonderful musical experience." "I should be thanking you," Lily replied. "You're the one who encouraged me to really play, not just provide background music." Catherine smiled. "I recognize something in you, not just talent, but that specific kind of hesitation that comes from a musical wound." When Lily looked surprised, she added, "I've taught long enough to recognize the signs. Something happened that made you stop playing, didn't it?" Lily nodded, suddenly finding it difficult to speak. "Whatever it was, it clearly didn't destroy your ability," Catherine continued. "Sometimes we need a push to face our fears, even if that push comes from someone with less than noble intentions." She glanced in the direction Preston had gone. "He wanted me to fail," Lily said quietly. "He brought me here as some kind of joke." and instead you reminded yourself of who you really are. Catherine took a business card from her small purse. I still have connections at several music schools. If you're interested in exploring opportunities, scholarships, part-time programs, whatever might work with your current situation, please call me. Lily accepted the second business card of the night, feeling slightly dazed. I don't know what I want to do yet. Tonight was unexpected, of course. Take your time. Catherine squeezed her hand. Just don't let that talent go to waste again. The world has enough accountants and business managers, but never enough true musicians. On the ride home, Lily sat in the back of Preston's luxury car, staring at the two business cards in her hand. 24 hours ago, her path had seemed clear. Finish her business degree, find a stable office job, leave the restaurant industry and her failed music career firmly in the past. Now everything felt uncertain again. She slipped the cards into her purse and took out her phone. There were 3 messages from Tasha. How's it going? Rich people still being awful? Hello? Are you alive or did they sacrifice you in some weird rich person ritual? Seriously, text me back or I'm calling the cops. Lily smiled weakly and typed, Sorry, it's been a crazy night. Heading home now. We'll explain everything. When the car finally pulled up to her apartment building, Lily thanked the driver and stepped out into the cool night air. The contrast between Preston's mansion and her modest apartment building had never been more stark. Yet for the first time, she didn't feel the usual pang of inadequacy. Something had shifted inside her tonight, a rebalancing of how she measured worth, both her own and others. Tasha was waiting up, sprawled on the couch with a textbook but clearly not studying. She sat up as Lily entered. Finally, I was about to... She stopped, taking in Lily's expression. What happened? Did that jerk do something? Not exactly. Lily dropped her purse on the counter and kicked off her shoes. Or maybe he did, just not in the way he intended. Over the next half hour, Lily recounted the evening's events while Tasha listened with progressively widening eyes. So let me get this straight, Tasha said when Lily finished. This rich jerk invited you to his fancy party to humiliate you. But instead, you blew everyone away with your playing, made useful connections, and came home with $1,000? That about sums it up, Lily replied, still processing it herself. That's like movie-level revenge, the kind you don't even get to plan. Tasha grinned. I wish I could have seen his face. Lily smiled at the memory of Preston's stunned expression after her performance. It was pretty satisfying. So what are you going to do now? Tasha asked, gesturing at the business cards on the counter. Are you thinking about music school again? It was the question Lily had been asking herself the entire ride home. I don't know. Part of me wants to say yes immediately, but another part is still terrified. Of what? After tonight, you've proven you can play again. It's not just about playing, Lily tried to explain. It's about expectations. When I was younger, music wasn't just something I did, it was everything I was. The talented one, the prodigy. Everyone had such high hopes for me, and when I failed... You were 17, Tasha reminded her. Nobody should have their entire future decided at 17. Maybe, Lily sighed. But starting over now feels scary in a different way. I'm not that prodigy anymore. I'd just be an older student trying to catch up on years of lost practice. So? Better late than never, and you clearly haven't lost your touch if you impressed a conservatory dean after 6 years of not playing. Lily picked up Catherine's card, running her finger over the embossed lettering. I need time to think. This all happened so fast. Fair enough. Tasha stood and stretched. But while you're thinking, can I suggest you at least start playing again? Even if it's just for yourself? The idea both appealed to Lily and frightened her. We don't have a piano. There's that practice room at the community center. It's not fancy, but it's something. Tasha gave her a questioning look. Unless you're not ready? Lily thought about how it had felt to play tonight. The initial terror giving way to something else, something she had nearly forgotten, the pure joy of creating music. Maybe I am ready. For that much, at least. The next morning, Lily woke up later than usual, still tired from the emotional roller coaster of the previous night. She had the day off from both school and work, a rare luxury, and she lay in bed for a while replaying the events at Preston's mansion. Had it really happened? Had she actually performed Chopin for a room full of strangers and received a standing ovation? It seemed almost dreamlike in the light of day. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. This is Catherine from last night. Just checking that you got home safely and to let you know I meant what I said. Call me when you're ready to discuss options. So it had been real. All of it. Lily got up and made coffee, her mind still swirling with possibilities. As she sipped from her mug, she opened her laptop and did something she hadn't done in years. She searched for piano music online. Not to play. She still wasn't ready to commit to that, but just to listen. She found a recording of the Chopin piece she'd played last night and closed her eyes as the familiar notes filled the small apartment. It was played by a famous concert pianist, with flawless technique and deep emotional understanding. Lily didn't compare herself to the recording. That would have been setting herself up for disappointment, but instead let herself be carried away by the beauty of the music itself. When the piece ended, she opened her eyes to find Tasha standing in the doorway of their tiny kitchen, watching her with a small smile. "I haven't seen that look on your face in a long time," Tasha said. "That completely absorbed somewhere else look you get when you're really into music." Lily hadn't realized she'd been so transparent. "I was just listening, I know, but it's a start." Tasha came into the kitchen and poured herself coffee. "Oh, by the way, guess who came into the coffee shop this morning while I was getting this?" "Who?" "Your boss from Bellini's. I overheard him talking to another customer about how one of his waitresses apparently gave some incredible piano performance at Richard Preston's house last night. Word travels fast among rich people, I guess." Lily groaned. "Great, so now everyone at work will know. Is that a bad thing?" "You were amazing from what you told me." "I don't know if it's bad or good. Just different." Lily ran a hand through her hair. "Everything feels different today." Tasha studied her for a moment. "Different scary or different exciting?" "Both, I think. It was the truth." For 6 years, Lily had been building a life defined by what she wasn't. Not a musician, not a prodigy, not a failure. She'd kept her head down, worked hard, and followed a safe path toward a secure but uninspiring future. Last night had forced her to confront not just her fear, but also the possibility that she'd been hiding from her true self all this time. The realization was terrifying. It was also strangely liberating. Lily picked up her phone and looked at the text from Catherine again. She wasn't ready to call yet, wasn't ready to commit to any new path. But for the first time in years, she was ready to consider possibilities beyond the narrow future she'd resigned herself to. "I think," she said slowly, "I might go to the community center today, just to see if they have any open slots in the practice room." Tasha's face lit up. "Really, that's great." "Don't get too excited," Lily cautioned. "I'm not making any big decisions yet. I just want to play a little, for myself, to see how it feels without an audience or any pressure." "Baby steps," Tasha agreed, "but important ones." As Lily got dressed to head to the community center, she felt a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. She had no idea where this new path might lead or if she'd even continue down it after today. But something had awakened in her last night. Something she'd tried to bury but had never truly been able to let go. Music had once been her greatest love before it became her greatest fear. Maybe now it could simply be a part of her again, neither defining her completely nor absent from her life, a choice rather than a burden or a loss. For the first time in 6 years, that choice was hers to make. 3 months later, Lily stood outside Bellini's restaurant in the fading evening light. Her hands were stuffed in her coat pockets against the autumn chill, and she found herself watching the servers moving inside through the windows. It felt strange to be on this side of the glass, a customer rather than staff. "Ready?" Tasha asked, appearing at her side after parking the car. "I guess so," Lily replied, though her stomach was doing nervous flips. "It feels weird coming here and not wearing the uniform." "That's because this is a celebration, not a shift," Tasha reminded her, linking her arm through Lily's. "Your first public performance in 6 years deserves a fancy dinner, even if we have to eat ramen for the next 2 weeks to pay for it." They pushed through the doors into the warm, softly lit interior. The familiar smells of garlic, wine, and fresh bread enveloped Lily, but everything else felt different from this perspective. The hostess, a new hire Lily didn't recognize, led them to a small table near the window. As they settled in, Lily noticed several of her former co-workers doing double takes as they passed. Word had spread quickly after she'd given her 2 weeks' notice, and while most were supportive, she knew some thought she was making a mistake. Rosa, one of the veteran servers, stopped by their table with a genuine smile. "Look at you, sitting on the other side. I'm so happy for you, Lily." "Thanks," Lily said, returning the smile. "It's still sinking in, honestly. How did your performance go?" "I wanted to come but couldn't get the night off. It went, well, I think, no major disasters anyway." Lily tried to sound casual, but the memory of the previous night, her first formal recital since the disaster 6 years ago, still gave her a rush of mixed emotions. Pride, relief, lingering traces of fear. "She's being modest," Tasha cut in. "She was amazing." "Got a standing ovation," Rosa beamed. "I'm not surprised." "Hey, looks like you've got a VIP joining you." Lily turned to see the restaurant manager approaching their table, carrying a bottle of champagne and 3 glasses. "This is on the house," he said, setting down the glasses. "We're all proud of you, Lily. Not every day one of our servers gets accepted to the conservatory with a scholarship." As he poured the champagne, Lily felt a blush creeping up her neck. The attention still made her uncomfortable, but she was learning to accept it graciously. "Thank you. That's really kind." After the manager left, Tasha raised her glass. "To new beginnings." Lily clinked her glass against Tasha's. "And to friends who never give up on you, even when you've given up on yourself." They were halfway through their meal when Lily noticed a familiar figure being seated at a corner table. Richard Preston, in his usual spot alone with his newspaper. He hadn't seen her yet. "Don't look now," Lily whispered to Tasha. "But the guy who started all this is here." Tasha immediately turned to look, of course. "The jerk who tried to humiliate you? Which one is he?" "Corner table. Gray hair, blue tie." Tasha studied him with narrowed eyes. "He looks so ordinary. I was picturing someone with a villain mustache he could twirl while laughing maniacally." Despite her nervousness, Lily had to smile at the image. "He's just a man, a wealthy, sometimes arrogant man, but still just a person. Are you going to say something to him?" Lily considered the question. 3 months ago, the idea of voluntarily approaching Preston would have seemed absurd, but so much had changed since that night at his mansion. "I think I will," she decided, surprising herself. She waited until she'd finished her meal, then stood smoothing down her dress nervously. "Wish me luck." "You don't need luck," Tasha said confidently. "You've got talent and guts." "That's better." Lily made her way across the restaurant, aware of the curious glances from the staff who recognized her. Preston was focused on his phone, not noticing her approach until she was standing beside his table. "Mr. Preston?" she said, her voice steadier than she expected. He looked up, surprise flickering across his features before he composed himself. "Ah, Lily, I heard you'd moved on to better things." "I have," she confirmed, wondering if he could hear her heart pounding. "I wanted to thank you, actually." Now his surprise was unmistakable. "Thank me? What for?" "For pushing me to play that night. It wasn't kind, and I know you did it for your own reasons, but it ended up changing my life." She took a deep breath. Sometimes we need a push to face our fears, even if it comes from an unexpected source. Preston studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he gestured to the chair across from him. "Would you like to sit?" After a moment's hesitation, Lily sat down. Up close, she noticed something she hadn't before, a tiredness around his eyes, a certain heaviness in his posture that his expensive suit couldn't disguise. "I owe you an apology," he said, surprising her. "My behavior that night was less than admirable." "You were trying to embarrass me," Lily said plainly. He didn't deny it. "Yes, it was petty and beneath me. When Catherine called me out on it afterward, I realized how childish I'd been." "Why did you do it?" The question had been bothering Lily for months. Preston sighed, setting down his phone. "The simple answer? Because I could. Because people in my position often forget that those serving us have lives and talents and stories of their own." He looked genuinely regretful. The more complicated answer involves a lifetime of privilege and the peculiar blindness that comes with it. His candor caught Lily off guard. This wasn't the smooth, condescending man she remembered. "I've been following your progress," he continued. "Catherine keeps me updated. She's quite impressed with you." "She's been incredibly helpful," Lily acknowledged. Catherine had become a mentor of sorts, helping her navigate her return to music with patience and wisdom. "And now you're at the conservatory?" "Part-time," Lily clarified. "I'm still taking some business classes, too." keeping my options open. Smart? Preston nodded approvingly. Though from what Catherine tells me, your talent is extraordinary. I'm still finding my way back to it, Lily said honestly. Some days are easier than others. Preston seemed to consider this. Fear doesn't disappear overnight, does it? Even when we know better. Something in his tone made Lily wonder if he was speaking from personal experience. Before she could respond, he reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. I came here tonight hoping to run into you, actually. I wanted to give you this. Lily accepted the envelope cautiously. What is it? An invitation. I'm hosting a charity event next month to raise money for arts education in underserved schools. Catherine is on the board. We'd like you to perform. Lily stared at the envelope, a mix of emotions swirling inside her. I don't know if I'm ready for something like that. You are, Preston said with unexpected gentleness. But it's your choice, of course. The invitation includes a modest fee for your performance. Should you accept? I'll think about it, Lily promised. Tucking the envelope into her purse, that's all I ask. Preston glanced at his watch. I should let you get back to your dinner companion. She's been watching us like a hawk this entire time. Lily smiled, glancing back at Tasha, who didn't even pretend not to be staring. She's protective. As good friends should be. Preston extended his hand. Congratulations on your scholarship, Lily. I look forward to seeing where your talent takes you. As they shook hands, Lily felt the last lingering resentment toward him dissolve. Not because he deserved forgiveness necessarily, but because holding on to anger would only hold her back. Thank you, she said simply, before returning to her table. Well, Tasha demanded as soon as Lily sat down. What did Mr. Rich Jerk want? Lily showed her the invitation. He wants me to play at a charity event. Are you going to do it? I'm not sure yet. Lily looked back at Preston, who had returned to his meal. But I'm thinking about it. 2 weeks later, Lily sat in a practice room at the conservatory, working through a difficult passage in a Rachmaninoff piece. The room was small but had excellent acoustics and a quality upright piano that responded beautifully to her touch. She'd been practicing for nearly 2 hours, and her fingers were beginning to tire, but she pushed on, determined to master this particular section before her lesson with Professor Winters the following day. A knock at the door interrupted her concentration. She looked up to see Catherine standing in the doorway. I thought I might find you here, the older woman said with a smile. Your dedication is impressive. Lily stretched her fingers, working out the stiffness. I have a lot of catching up to do. Perhaps. But talent like yours doesn't disappear. It just needs to be rekindled. Catherine sat on a chair near the piano. Have you thought more about Richard's invitation? I have, Lily admitted. I'm still nervous about it, but I think I want to do it. Catherine looked pleased. I'm glad to hear that. It would be an excellent opportunity for you to perform in a supportive environment. That's part of why I'm considering it, Lily said, but also because I want to prove something to myself. That night at Preston's house, I played well, but it was a fluke in some ways. I was angry and determined to show him up. This would be different, a choice I'm making for myself. The best kind of choice, Catherine agreed. And what about the longer term? Anthony tells me you're one of his most promising students despite your unorthodox path. Lily ran her fingers lightly over the keys, not pressing down enough to make a sound. I'm taking it one day at a time. The scholarship helps, and I've been giving a few piano lessons on the side to earn extra money. Teaching suits you, Catherine observed. You have patience and empathy, qualities many technically proficient musicians lack. The comment warmed Lily. Her first few students were beginners, neighborhood kids, and one elderly woman who'd always wanted to learn. She'd been surprised to discover how much she enjoyed sharing music with others. I never thought I'd be on this path again, Lily confessed. After what happened at the state finals, I was so sure that part of my life was over forever. Life rarely moves in straight lines, Catherine said wisely. The detours often teach us the most valuable lessons. After Catherine left, Lily returned to her practice, but her mind kept wandering to how much her life had changed in just a few months. She had gone from hiding her musical ability to embracing it again, from seeing her talent as a source of pain to recognizing it as a gift. The fear hadn't disappeared entirely. She still felt moments of panic before performances, still woke from occasional nightmares about freezing on stage. But she was learning to work through the fear rather than be paralyzed by it. As she gathered her sheet music to leave, her phone buzzed with a text from Tasha. "How's practice? Still on for dinner tonight?" Lily smiled and typed back, "Just finishing up." "Definitely still on for dinner. I have news." The news was something she hadn't told anyone yet, an opportunity to participate in a summer program at a prestigious music institute. Professor Winters had recommended her, and while it would mean putting her business classes on hold, it felt like the right next step. 6 months ago, such an opportunity would have terrified her. Now it excited her more than it frightened her. Progress, not perfection, as Catherine often reminded her. As Lily walked across the conservatory campus, the late afternoon sun bathed the old buildings in golden light. Students hurried past carrying instrument cases and binders of sheet music. She still felt like something of an outsider here, older than many students with a gap in her training that made some classes challenging. But she also felt a sense of belonging she'd been missing for years. This world of music, with all its demands and rewards, was part of who she was. She'd tried to run from it, to build a life without it, only to discover that some passions can't be permanently abandoned. That night at Preston's mansion had been meant to shame her. Instead, it had freed her, not just to play again, but to understand that failure wasn't the end of her story. It was simply a difficult chapter in a longer narrative that was still being written. As she reached the bus stop, Lily paused to look back at the conservatory building. A piano melody drifted from an open window, someone practicing Bach with careful precision. She smiled, recognizing the piece as one she had recently mastered. Tomorrow she would return to practice again. There would be frustrations and breakthroughs, moments of doubt and moments of joy. The path ahead wasn't clearly marked or guaranteed, but for the first time in years Lily wasn't afraid to see where it might lead.